This one ingredient, creatine, this one ingredient can rebuild your muscle. And I hate to say this. Even if you don't lift a single dumbbell, you see. Geek alert. As we age, we get into our 60s and 70s. Our muscle just naturally disappears. It's called sarcopenia. Sarco means muscle. Penia means lack of muscle. So another geek alert. It's also called anabolic resistance. When we get into our 60s and 70s, we resist the anabolism, the ability to build muscle. So we begin to waste away. This one ingredient can change all of that. In this video, we're going to discuss it. What is that ingredient? How does it rebuild your muscle? How does it overcome that sarcopenia? Or anabolic resistance? Where can you get it? How much do you take? And then we're going to cover something that's really new and breaking in this space. This actually helps for so much more than muscle. And are actually even more important. What is this mysterious ingredient? Creatine. Yep. We're talking about creatine. And no. Creatine is not a steroid. It's certainly not a fad. This thing has been studied for decades. It's a compound. It's technically an amino acid. But your body doesn't really treat it like a protein or amino acid. It treats it differently. In fact, your body does make creatine. It makes it from 3 amino acids. Again. Geek alert. The 3 amino acids that your body makes creatine from are arginine, glycine, and methionine. Now these building blocks come together inside your liver, your kidneys, and your pancreas. All 3 of those organs make creatine for your body. It then travels through the bloodstream. In fact, 95% of creatine goes right to your muscle. And that's where it lives. And the rest of it goes to your brain. Whether it's in the muscle or brain, it acts like a quick charging energy reserve. Now, whether your muscles need to move, whether you're standing, you need to get up. You're in a chair, you need to stand up. Climbing stairs. That's where creatine helps fire the energy currency, ATP. Another quick geek alert. So many of us know that energy, the true energy currency, is ATP. Again, adenosine triphosphate. So when our muscle fires, it takes a phosphate, off of that ATP, and forms ADP, adenosine diphosphate. But did you ever wonder how that phosphorus got put back on the ADP or AMP? That's where creatine comes in. It supports ATP. It reloads your energy currency. It's like flipping a backup power switch. When your muscles need that extra push. And your muscles have been using creatine all your life. Your pancreas, your kidney, your liver, especially, have been making creatine all your life. So why do seniors need to supplement it? Why seniors need creatine? Well, here's the thing. You know, there's a lot of stuff involved with aging. We've talked many times on this channel. How your insulin receptors tend to get worse and weak. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. One of the things that happens as we age, especially into our 60s and 70s, is that our body loses the ability to make creatine. That means less fuel for your muscles, for your brain. It's one of those sneaky culprits behind age-related muscle loss. And even though exercise is important, the truth is, most seniors don't move enough to stimulate creatine, as you have to get higher and higher stimulants for creatine. You know, back in your 20s and 30s, you can stimulate that muscle growth. with just maybe 1 or 2 visits to the gym per week. Not as 60-year-olds. 60 and 70-year-olds need to start incorporating regular daily. And I do. Twice daily. I mean, a little bit of resistance training to stimulate that muscle. Again, this is where supplementation comes in. Add a small daily dose of creatine, and that helps restore what your aging has gradually taken away. It's like topping off the gas tank before you go on a road trip, so you're not running on fumes anymore. Getting creatine, diet versus supplements. So, can you get a supplement from your diet? This time, we're talking about creatine. And in fact, the answer is yes. No question. The richest sources of creatine in a typical diet are red meats and certain types of fish. Think beef, salmon, and my favorite, small bait fish, herring. A typical steak might give you 1 or 2 grams of creatine. And what we want in a daily amount is 3 to 5. So that steak can get you almost there. That sounds good, right? But here's the catch. Most older adults simply aren't eating enough of these foods on a regular basis to maintain optimal creatine levels. As their dietary creatine requirements increase, because their body is just not making as much as it used to, appetite levels tend to decrease with age. Digestive sensitivities increase, so you're not absorbing as well. And a lot of seniors intentionally cut back on calories, and especially red meats, out of fear of heart attacks and high cholesterol and saturated fats. Others switch to more plant-based diets. Plant-based diets can be great in many ways. But creatine, it's virtually non-existent in plants. Add that to the fact that the body's natural ability to make creatine is continuing to decline with aging. And we're left with a shortfall. Your muscles are asking for energy. Your brain's calling for backup. But your internal supply just isn't keeping up. That's why creatine supplementation can become a real game changer. Creatine, simple and effective. Creatine is not a drug. It's not a complicated treatment. It's just a scoop of powder. Or a tablespoon of powder. The same substance your body already knows and uses. Added to a daily routine. There's no drastic diet changes. No need to track macros. No math here. No personal trainer. Just a scoop a day. Or a tablespoon. I usually get about a tablespoon and a half. To give my body the fuel that it's quietly been asking for. That simple act can lead to big benefits. Again, you might be wondering, how much creatine do I really need? For most folks, the answer is simple. Tired of being told your labs are normal, while you still feel off. Meet Dr. Ford Brewer, a YouTube sensation with over 600,000 subscribers, dedicated to helping you optimize your health and metabolism. My team is offering free clinical consultations to create a tailored program just for you. No guesswork. Just real data, real care, and real results. Call now and take control of your health today. 1 small scoop. 3 to 5 grams a day. 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate. That's the most trusted, the simplest, the most researched form of creatine that's out there. You don't need anything fancy with creatine. You don't need to take breaks. You don't need to cycle on and off. Just mix it. I mix mine in my coffee. Mix it in a drink. And drink it up. And go. Loading phase, optional. So the evidence Recent evidence has reported the use of much higher doses in older adults. Now, what was that for? So I'm talking about 20 to 25 grams a day kind of dosages. But that's really just a loading dose. And they're calling it a loading phase. Loading. LOADING. A loading phase. Researchers have used it to help people get the creatine into their muscles more quickly. And sort of jumpstart this whole process. Again. It's sort of like filling up your gas tank. Topping your gas off before you take a road trip. In these studies, older adults in their 60s and 70s took around 20 to 25 grams a day for about a week. Then switched back to that usual maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams. After that, guess what? It worked. These folks got stronger. They gained more lean muscle. They had better energy. Especially when they were also doing some light resistance training. Like lifting small weights. Using resistance bands. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but the big question you might be asking is, well, wait a minute. Is that safe? Yes. Those high doses were very well tolerated. There were no major side effects. No damage to the kidneys. No liver damage. These people felt good. Their numbers were good. Their labs were great. And they saw real results. Now, just to be clear, you don't need to take that 25 gram a day for a week loading dose. Actually, don't do it. Unless you've researched it. And you know the ins and outs. You can still see great results. Getting started with that 3 to 5 grams a day. 2 to 3 teaspoons. Or a tablespoon. Maybe a tablespoon and a half. For most people. Especially if you're not exercising much. 3 to 5 grams a day is the sweet spot. It's safe. It's easy to take. And it still helps build strength over time. How to take creatine? How do you take it? As I said before, I just mix it in my coffee. Every morning. Put a tablespoon. A heaping tablespoon of creatine monophosphate. In my coffee. You know. Like everything else. You have to stir it up. You have to get used to that. It doesn't really impact the taste of the coffee that much. Now, some people want to put it in a protein shake. And as you know, I'm nervous about protein shakes. Because, I do recommend considering a low-carb diet as you get into your 60s and 70s. Because most of us, like over 3/4 of us, our insulin receptors, our ability to metabolize carbs, is continuing to decrease. Most people don't know this. But in that kind of form, highly processed powdered proteins can be turned into carbs very quickly by your body. And protein shakes are a common form of what we call stealth carbs. Carbs you didn't know you were getting. And it tends to ruin your ketosis. If you're doing a keto diet, and you don't need carbs, specifically to this point, creatine is used quite a bit by the bodybuilder community. And there's a big perception that, oh, I have to have carbs in order to absorb it. If you have a bit of yogurt or milk or peanut butter, it can help your body absorb it better. But you really don't need to load carbs to absorb creatine. And specifically, if you're worried about whether creatine works at all with a low-carb diet, the answer is a resounding and simple yes. It doesn't raise your blood sugar. And it won't mess with your eating plan. You may want to remember this one thing. Whatever you mix it with, don't use prune juice. Prune juice has got a lot of carbs. That's what we were just talking about. But specifically, prune juice has been associated with some gastric side effects. Gas, diarrhea, things like that. Creatine and kidneys. What about the kidneys? Now, for years, a lot of people worried about creatine stressing the kidneys. Where did that come from? Well, here's the thing. Creatine can be modified by the body to form a thing called creatinine, which sounds very similar. It looks very similar. And again, it can be modified by the body to form creatinine. Creatinine is what doctors look at to look at kidney function. The higher the creatinine, the lower the kidney function. So a lot of doctors put 2 and 2 together, saw increases in creatinine in some people that were taking creatine, and decided, oh my gosh, their kidney function is declining. All of that makes sense. Until you go back and understand that was artificial creatinine. If you look at other forms, other indicators of kidney function, it's really clear. Creatine does not negatively impact kidney function. Creatine is safe for the kidneys. Again, just because it's a byproduct doesn't mean that it is causing significant kidney damage. That train has left the station. It's been researched. That's not an issue. Other side effects and concerns. Okay. Are there any other side effects? Concerns that we might see with creatine? How about with the liver? No. Nothing significant with the liver. How about anything else? Well, yes. As I mentioned before, especially with some things like prune juice, you can get some GI side effects. Some bloating. Things like that. Now in addition, because creatine is absorbed by the muscles, and then that encourages the muscles to absorb water, you can actually get a little bit of dehydration. So make sure that you hydrate properly when you're taking creatine. Some people feel a little bit of stomach discomfort, a little bit of irritation the first couple of weeks. You get over that within a week or two. Again, take it with food. Split your doses. Take half the dose in the morning, half the dose at night. Within a couple of weeks, you're not going to notice that. And most of us don't even notice anything. As I mentioned, there is some potential for dehydration. Here's the time to really think about that. If you're on blood pressure pills that are called water pills, diuretics, things that tend to dehydrate you, that's a time to be a little bit more aware of the added dehydration you can get when you're taking creatine. So if you're taking blood pressure meds, just make sure you talk to your doctor before you take it. This kind of dehydration is something where the creatine is pulling water from the extracellular space, the space between your cells, into your muscles. So again, those are all minor issues. And especially minor compared to the benefits that you see with creatine. Benefits beyond muscles, the brain. Speaking of benefits, I mentioned something earlier where there's maybe a benefit that's even more important than muscles that people are beginning to document from creatine. This is it. The science shows. The evidence is clear. That creatine can help you build muscle and feel stronger, even if you're not exercising. Now that's amazing. But if you want to feel the full effect, you get stronger, steadier, more energetic. Especially if you're beyond age 60. You need to add movement. Resistance training. Now, hang on. We're not talking about heavy weights. We're not talking about going to the gym every day. I know a lot of 60-year-olds do that. That's not required. For what we're talking about. We're just talking about daily exercise snacks. Simple types of resistance work. Push against a wall. Use a stretchy band. A soup can. A water bottle. Even your own body weight. It can be incredibly simple. Very easy. And again. Add that to the supplementation. With the creatine. That's a big deal. Simple resistance training. Let me give you an example. Just plain old chair squats. That's right. Just standing up and sitting down from a chair. On purpose. That doesn't sound very fancy, does it? And it doesn't sound like much. But it works. Those big muscles in your legs. You know. The thighs. Well. We call them the quadriceps muscles. The hips. The calves. Those are the big muscles. That you want to work. Because those are the big muscles. That support you metabolically. As you age. They also support you. And keep you from falling. They're the ones that you use to move around. These are the muscles that you use to walk. To climb stairs. Get in and out of the car. To keep your balance. And again. To keep you from falling. People say. Forward. You're too esoteric. Tell us exactly how to do it. Sit down in a sturdy chair. Feet flat on the floor. Cross your arms in front of you. Or you can reach them out for balance. And then stand up. We talked about the sit-to-stand test. In a previous video. We were doing that fast. That was to get some assessment. Of those same leg and hip and thigh muscles. This time. For training them. We're talking about doing it slowly. Try that 5 or 10 times in a row. This is very simple. And for most of us. Very easy. That's it. That's resistance training. No weights. No machines. Just you in a chair. And guess what? When you're taking creatine. Alongside that kind of very simple. Very easy movement. Your body actually responds much quicker. And you start to avoid that loss of muscle. That sarcopenia. That anabolic resistance. That we get when we're in our 60s and 70s. You build strength more easily. Yes. As your body tears down muscle. You're now replacing it. Instead of not. You recover quicker. You feel more solid in your step. You're less likely to fall. And the thing that most people don't understand. These muscles improve the function of our mitochondria. Which burns our energy. And helps us with metabolic disease. And you improve your capillary refill. Your capillary component of that muscle. And what's so important about capillaries? The capillaries are where our insulin receptors live. What most people don't understand. Is that. As we grow into prediabetes and diabetes. We really begin to lose those capillaries of those muscles. We're losing the real estate. Where our insulin receptors live. How do you regain that? HIIT training. Resistance training. Resistance snacks. More simple exercises. Here are some other ideas. Just simple wall push-ups. That's more for upper body. Just lean on a wall. And push. Like a gentle push-up. For your upper body. I do floor push-ups. If you can do those. Do those. But you don't have to start there. Split squats. Just use a chair. Build leg strength. And build balance at the same time. Use some light dumbbells. And if you're already beyond light dumbbells. It's very simple. To add a little bit more weight. Even working in the yard. I mean. Especially when you're digging. Digging is a big deal. Getting that big shovel. And pushing down. Pushing your whole body against it. Hour after hour. That's a big deal. For senior health. You don't really need a gym. You don't need to break a sweat. Spandex is not a requirement. You just need a few minutes. A couple of times a week. Some people would say. Like I would say. Try it more like 5 times a week. And even try it a couple of times a day. Depending on how rigorous. How intense. That exercise snack is. Even if you get some really intense exercise work. Still go ahead and do that. Like once or twice a week. But get some very non-intense. Very easy. Gentle exercise snacks. A couple of times a day. Especially as you get into your 60s and 70s. To overcome. That what we call again. Anabolic resistance. That inability to rebuild muscles. There are a lot of goals here. Obviously. To stay independent. To walk easier. To get up from the couch. Without groaning. To carry your groceries. Without a second thought. Another more important thing. That you'll see on the internet. Is yes. To decrease falls. Because once you fall. In your 60s and 70s. Especially if you break a hip. You're usually going to die. Within a couple of years. So that's important too. Preventing falls, muscles as an internal safety valve. But the thing that's most important. Nobody really connects the dots on. And that is. Muscles are not just for looks. They're not just cosmetic. They're not just for moving you around. Muscles are your most important. Internal safety valve. Against the thing that kills us. And disables more of us. Than anything else. Undiagnosed prediabetes. Because muscles. That have really good metabolic function. They're strong. You're exercising them. You're doing HIIT with them. They've got great capillaries. They've got places. For those insulin receptors to live. They actually bypass. Ailing insulin receptors. To pull sugar out of the blood. So you don't have to get too much insulin. And start all this cardiovascular inflammation cycle going. Pair that creatine. With a little bit of resistance training. And you're going to get a big, big difference. Creatine's best. When it's being used. When it's being stimulated. Creatine for brain health. Now. Again. Back to the comments. Where I said. There might be something. That's more important. Than even muscles. Maybe it's your brain. People tell me that all the time. They say. You know. I started seeing you. Because I was worried about a heart attack. At this point in time. I'm far more worried about Alzheimer's. Or a stroke. Loss of cognitive function. Now why do I bring that up? So here's the thing. More recently. They've begun to do studies. On creatine and cognitive function. Your brain. Helping you keep your mind intact. You see. Again. You remember we talked about. 95% of creatine. Being managed by the muscle. Well. The other 5%. Is very, very important. It's hanging out in your brain. And it's there for a reason. Your brain uses a ton of energy. Sometimes even more than your muscles. Every time you try to remember something. Stay focused. Or just process what's happening around you. Your brain is burning fuel. And guess what? Your brain. In some situations. Burns more energy. Than muscles do. That's hard for a lot of people to wrap our head around. But it's true, and what's creatine got to do with that? Again. Just like with your muscles. Creatine recharges the currency of energy. ATP. When that ATP loses that phosphorus, creatine is there to put that phosphorus back. Phosphocreatine donates that phosphorus back to ADP to form ATP. So you're energized yet again. And so scientists started asking, well, if creatine helps the brain make energy, what happens if we give older adults a little bit of extra creatine and cognitive function? Well, it turns out some very, very interesting things happen. One meta-analysis. And a meta-analysis is a big study that looks at a bunch of small studies. And this one showed that creatine supplementation improved memory, especially in older adults. That's right. Real improvements in short-term memory and cognitive performance in older adults. Now, not every study has seen that. But the preponderance, the vast majority of the studies in this space are showing big gains. Others show smaller effects. But the pattern keeps showing up. Older adults, 60s and 70s, and people who ate less meat, got the most benefit from creatine supplementation. Now why is that? Tired of being told your labs are normal, while you still feel off? Meet Dr. Ford Brewer, a YouTube sensation with over 600,000 subscribers, dedicated to helping you optimize your health and metabolism. My team is offering free clinical consultations to create a tailored program just for you. Here are some of the most popular programs that we have. Comprehensive telemedicine care, including lab work, one-on-one consultations, and prescriptions. The Metabolic Reset Program that provides fat loss, increased energy, longevity, weight loss as well as nutrition and exercise plans. Personalized coaching with a world-class team of dedicated health advisors. They're hand-picked and trained by me. A limited number of patients can actually choose to work with me personally. No guesswork. Just real data, real care, and real results. Call now and take control of your health today. Well, those are the folks who tend to have lower creatine levels in the brain to begin with. So when they supplement, the brain soaks it up like a sponge. And this gets even more important in certain situations, like if you've had a few nights of poor sleep, or if you're feeling extra stressed. Studies have shown that during brain stress, whether that's sleep deprivation or cognitive fatigue, either one of these things, creatine can help restore mental clarity and reaction time. Cognitive performance from creatine. In other words, when your brain's running low on fuel, creatine steps in like a battery backup. Is this going to turn you into a chess grandmaster overnight? No. That's not. Let's be realistic here. If you're looking for more focus though, sharper recall, or even just fewer of those moments where you walk into a room and say, "Why did I come in here?" This is worth paying attention to. Pay attention to creatine. Again, it helps with cognitive function. Don't overthink it. Just start doing it. Because every scoop is a vote for more energy, more strength, more mental clarity, and ultimately more independence. And a better life. If you're over 60, or if you care about someone who is, creatine might just be the simplest, safest, most underrated way to stay strong and sharp. Without turning your life upside down, but to really know how bad your muscles are. Check out this video right here.